Hello and welcome back to ZIM Explore. I'm Dr. Abstract, and in this ZIM Explore, we're going to take a look at explainers. Now let's go to the ZIM site now at zimjs.com. And explainers, it's a kind of a new thing for me. I used to think of it, here's the ZIM site at zimjs.com. I used to think of explainers as being e-learning apps, perhaps. But on the other hand, they're somewhat like data visualization or maybe infoactive. So kind of a combination of those three to explain something. What we'll be explaining is the Sheridan Interactive Media Program. So if we go to the ZIM Learn site here, our page, and scroll on down to Education, I teach in interactive media right here. And you can go to this page right here and see an overview of what that interactive media is like. I am now the coordinator of interactive media. Our old coordinator has retired. I was once the coordinator of the curriculum, but once the curriculum was set, I became a professor. So now I'm the coordinator again, and I was preparing, or am preparing, for an update to the site. But there might be, this is an explainer video, explainer video of the explainers. This is a video showing how the explainers were made. And so there might be people arriving here that have not seen ZIM before. All the explainers were made with ZIM. ZIM is great for making all sorts of things. We have let's see, animations. We have the ZIM pen. So in the explainer, there's a ZIM pen there. We have sprites, shapes, components, animations along paths, all sorts of wonderful things. And in general, we are a way to code, a framework, a JavaScript canvas framework to code that is good for even kids, designers, right up to professionals. All right, so you can come to the ZIM site at any time and take a look at what we have here. It generally involves much less code than any other frameworks or even HTML and JavaScript. So there's all kinds of reviews and things that you can see here on the ZIM site. So what we'll be doing is taking a look through the explainers that we've made for the Sheridan Interactive Media site, and we'll go through the code and see what's there as well. So let's drop this down. Here's our first explainer, and it uses parallax like that. Why don't we just pop on through them, I suppose, so you get a sense, and then we're going to take a look at the code that went into making each of these. All right, so you hit the little arrow to go to the next one. And if we press this, then it creates what is known as the scrambler. So for those in ZIM, you probably remember the scrambler. This is a scrambler as a texture active on a 3D object. Shall we quickly solve? There's Wasim, one of our teachers. Here's Janice, one of our teachers. And then I'm underneath here. It's Dr. Abstract. And there it is solved. Okay, so that's the ZIM scrambler. We can make it scramble again, but done in a texture active. Here is drawing. So how we're going to approach this is from a sense of art. So I will spell out art, like that. Art. Here we go with the ZIM pen. Here is where we talk about code. So a new circle. If you come from ZIM, you certainly recognize that. We often use that as a nice simple case, new circle dot center. So this is the dot syntax, dot center. I just have to go that way. Little emitters are popping out there. And then another tab and a dot drag. And we're going to drag on the stage. There we go. And so we can reset that. And that's an example of a circle being dragged on the stage. So when we do the videos for so we're doing a video of these explainers, and that video will be presented on the interactive media site. I'll have a little video of me right in there. And this is new, so if you're coming from ZIM, you haven't seen this yet, but we're about to launch a ZIM 020. That's a major version 20 of ZIM. And ZIM's been going for over 10 years. And we've done lots of changes and updates and lots of bubbling videos about all those changes. Our upcoming one, ZIM 020, will involve charts. So this was an example of a chart, and we'll see how that comes together. Oh, odd robots. What we did here is we took an existing mobile game. We took an existing mobile game, which was usually vertical, turned it horizontal, and just sort of inserted in here as an example of a game where we are trying to spot the evil robot. Actually, don't know which one of these is evil. Nope. And that will say nope. If we get back the sound here. Nope. 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 Oh, come on. Oh, there it is. Yes. All right. And now we have to find two evil robots. So I won't go through the making of that game. It was rather lengthy, and we probably did do an explorer bubbling about it initially. So this is ZIM Pack that lets us pack pictures into an area. And if we want to examine some pictures, we can swap them around like this. And every time we hit refresh, there's another set of pictures where we explain, or I'll probably explain who some of these folks are. That's Mark and Adrian. They're from Jam 3. Pablo's missing. And they've won lots of awards and done very well in industry. There's Ryan Andel. He's done well in industry too with Secret Location, other graduates, and etc. So ZIM Pack. So we'll see how that's made. Have to remember that the goal of this ZIM Explorer is not to actually talk about each of these. That will be done in the main video. This is we want to get to see the code as to how this is done. And two dials there as we talk about UI, UX. And here is something new as well, part of the charts. I suppose it's a chart data viz. Maybe I have to rename that if we aren't always making charts. But this is a word cloud, so that's new now as well, and that's inside of a ZIM book. So we'll see how that was built. And this is the last one here where we're going to go through and kind of say, imagine a world where you have we can make magic with code and so forth. And then here is, but if we didn't have it, how can we unlock it? And so this is sort of the last one. But note that we're doing the ZIM shader there to handle glitch. So that's a ZIM glitch, and we're glitching that to sort of say that it's locked away until you apply. And then here's where our video will be. All right, I think that's it. And we're back to our first one with the parallax. Okay, so let's drop this down and take a look through the code to build this. So this is ZIM. If you haven't seen ZIM and have come from the Sheridan site, you may, I suppose, find that this code could be overwhelming for you, but why don't we just take a peek here at the editor. So this is a ZIM editor that allows us to make things such as a new circle. And we will make that, how about 100 and red, and we'll dot center, and we've seen the dot drag before, drag. So there's the code that we're showing you in the explainers. It's not too bad, is it? New circle. We tell it some extra information, dot center and dot drag. There's all sorts of examples of this type of code here in the zaps. And I have many zaps, mind you. I have many zaps that you won't see, but you'll see these ones like the featured zaps here, where we take a look at animation and shapes and so forth. So those are things that are quite prominent in ZIM and used in ZIM. We have a bunch of basic ones, including a start one. Actually, it might be better to look at these via the expo right here, rather than looking at a big long list of words. So if you want, we can hit expo like that, and then we get a bunch of thumbnails of them. So these are the easier ones where we should start, some of the basic ones that usually are a bit shorter and not quite as scary. All right, the code that we're going to be looking through today is here. And it's what we could call medium. All of these explainers that we just saw were made in, probably could have made it in a day, but we were also preparing images for them and actually building some of the charts like the word cloud. But anyway, aside from that, it was made basically in a day or two. So it's not that bad. For instance, here's one right here. And this one happens to be for the parallax. Let's take a look. We're bringing in ZIM right there. That's our framework. We have a helper as well that is just making the nav. Let's peek at that. So here's the helper. There's all the pages that we need to cycle through. Here is the right-hand button right here. It's a button that has a width and a height and a background color and a triangle. And the button usually is rectangular, but we've made it 90 by 90, and then we've added a corner that's 45. So that means it will end up with a circle. It's not the only way for us to make a circle. We could have made a circle, put a triangle on it, and turned it into a button later. But if it's a button, it's usually rectangular based. However, we're making it a circle. We're scaling it, setting its alpha, and we're positioning it up there 10 pixels from the right and 10 pixels from the top. And when we tap on it, we are going to go to the next, usually we're going to go, that's ZIM's way of saying, hey, go to this URL. That's whatever in our pages right here, that is one more than our current index. So the index is pages index of current. Right. So when we go and make the nav, we pass it a page. So if you see back here in parallax, when we make the nav, we're saying make the nav, and we're currently on parallax. So if we get that we're on parallax, then it finds out which number in there, like we might have been in UI UX, in which case the index would have been 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we would have been starting on index 7, so that when we go to the next page, we're going to go to number 8. But there's a problem when you're on the last one. We can't go to one more, we have to go back to 0. So that was just a little test. There's actually another way that we could do that with a modulus that's rather elegant, but this is a simple test saying, hey, if we're at the end of the list, then go to the first one, else go to the next one. And the same with the previous, but this time if we're at the beginning, if we're at the first one and we're trying to go previous, then go to the last page. All right, and so those are our buttons on there. We also, when we made the icon, this triangle, it looked just a little bit uncentered, so we moved it a bit, because triangles aren't, triangles kind of are weighted differently than you expect. Excuse me. So that is the helper. Let's go back to the parallax here. We are loading in the banner, the front, a mid, and a back pictures, so 3 pictures from an assets folder. So that's a folder where we're keeping these images. We're making a new frame, which ZIM is a framework, and it is going to fit our what we call a stage into these dimensions. So more of a kind of a vertical, much like a an iPad or something like that, a tablet. These are the background, or the color of the stage and the background color, and when we're ready, we run this function right here. We're given F for frame, S for stage, W for width, and H for height if we need them. And in here, we're creating the 3 pictures, 1, 2, and 3. We're scaling them to the stage to be just a little bit bigger. And this is the background. So we have parallax now. Let's show this again. When we have parallax, the pictures move. So they should be scaled a little bit bigger than our stage so that as the background there moves, it doesn't show the edge of the picture. Once we've figured out what the scale is for the background, then we make the mid, the front be basically that same scale so that the picture all scales nicely together. We're locating them, and anytime we locate, we've got 3 or 4 ways of locating. We can center something, that's pretty easy. We can position something, and that positions the edges from various edges or from the center. Or we could locate them specifically an X and a Y. In this case, what we did is we used the place command here. And that allows us to pick up the picture as we're looking at it and move it around to where we want it. And when we drop it, it will tell us in a console. That's a little place where we can read whatever is sent to the console for debugging and stuff. It'll tell us there this location right here. And that's where we got those numbers from. Okay, so we have those three placed. And if we didn't run the parallax, then let's see if I can do this for us. Like that, and I'll open up in a default browser. If we don't run the parallax, it's still running the parallax. No, it didn't save. Control S, save, and try refreshing this again. Refresh. So there it is. That's how the picture kind of looked in real. And what I did is I cut it into layers, and then we're making the front layer move more than the S, and the S moves more than the background. It's not a perfect parallax example, but I think it's effective enough. So here's the parallax. We're saying, hey, new parallax that comes from ZIM, from here, from all of this stuff. The object that we want to move is the background, the mid, and the front. The properties we're changing it based on is the X, that's sideways, X, and Y is up and down. And then here's the amount that we're going to change. The background changes less, the middle ground a bit more, and the front even more. And once this is back and save it, then we get a refresh here. There's the front moving more as we move our X. Okay, we could have also parallaxed the Y. But the idea behind the making of here is anybody who would be interested in seeing how these explainers were made. We don't need to teach them too much about coding just yet, because hopefully they'll come to the program to learn how to do all this stuff. People in ZIM probably know already much of this, but some of the new ones coming up here will be fun for them to see. Okay, then we're putting our banner down at the bottom. So there we are, positioning it 0 from the left, 0 from the bottom of the stage. And we're making our navigation, which are these two little arrows up at the top there. All right, we could actually use those two little arrows to come and take a look at the next one we're going to go to, which is right here, called the Scrambler. So in this case, we're bringing in ZIM with Three.js. So Three.js is going to give us the 3D aspects. We're also bringing in the picture that is the professor and Anton, which we don't need to bring in like that. We would just say GF_Anton. So that's us bringing in a Google font. This whole texture active here of the puzzle was made back in ZIM 015 when we launched texture actives. So if we go back to the ZIM site here, there is anything that's new in ZIM is up here. So here's ZIM 019, including glitch that we mentioned at that one point. In ZIM 018, we brought in hand tracking, and so we can use gestures to pinch and anything in ZIM. ZIM 017 was Rive, a new way to animate. We brought Rive in, drop targets on lists. And here's 016, we brought in the shaders. So that was shaders, but then 018 was applying shaders to actual ZIM objects rather than just presenting shaders. And then here's ZIM 015, where we introduced the ZIM texture active, so as well as a whole set of 36 examples of using ZIM in 3D. So if you're interested in that, that's where that stuff comes from. And if you recall here, it means that we've got that 3D model, yet ZIM is actually on the model here. Right, like that. Okay, so we're not going to spend time going through all of the texture active stuff, but this was us preparing, that's like a container for the texture active. Here is the button for that. Here's some words. This is, there's a front page. So there's an intro page that animates. That's what we're looking at. But there's the Scrambler. Not too bad, huh? There's the picture of the professor. We chop it up 2 by 4 or whatever we want. and we pass that into a scrambler, and that we're putting on the puzzle. When the scrambler is complete, we're animating the rotation of the phone. And so that is the whole scrambler. That's all. What we just read there was actually making the scrambler there, and when it's complete, it will spin the phone, as you saw earlier on. Here's the 3JS side. We're using the 3 helper module from ZIM that saves about, I don't know, 12 lines of sort of more complicated code there. And we're loading in the phone model like that. There's our texture actives, and we're saying, hey, make a texture active of that puzzle, and then put that on a canvas window, which is a panel. So that's us taking the texture active and putting it on a panel that we end up placing on the model. There's some lights in 3D, and that's basically it. And then here is the information and the banner are in another frame, and so they aren't in 3D. That's why this thing right here, actually, you can make it bigger and it sort of comes out beyond. Like, cool. But anyway, this part and the buttons are separate. All right, let's go to the next one then. Draw with a finger. Ooh, okay. And as we draw, we present the clear button. But before we draw, and the clear button has a confirm. Before we draw, we just had a message that came up. But once we draw, we then allow you to clear it. Okay, let's go to the pen now then. Called Art. We're back to bringing in just ZIM. There's no 3D here. We're bringing in only the banner. And there's our instructions. So when we present the instructions, draw with the finger, some information there, color, size, etc. We're changing its alpha, positioning it. And when we press on the stage, then we're just going to animate the instructions to 0. There. Here we make a new pen. It's going to have different colors like that. And we don't actually have to locate it anywhere particular. Oh, this came from an animation, so we don't really need to locate. We just add 2 like that, and that'll be fine. And then we're going to animate it. This is kind of neat. Shall we see the pen without the animation? So we comment that out, and I come back to here. So there's the pen without animating, and it's a little bit skinny, isn't it? But there is the color. And normally pens don't even have all of these colors. It would be something like red. Comment those out. So here is just sort of a normal red pen like that. What we've done, and that's with the size of 3, what we've done is passed in a series. So as it's drawing the pen, every time it goes to draw something, it's just pulling this, and that makes that kind of ribbon effect. And then here we are animating a size factor. So not the size specifically, but a size factor. Anyway, you don't need to worry too much about that. Up to 20 times its size. And in 0.5, and we've got rewind and loop true. Do you want to see what it looks like, for instance, without rewind? It's kind of cool too. Isn't that strange looking? So what it does is it just gets bigger, and then it pops back to, so that's it looping size. But when it rewinds, it would then get bigger and rewind to smaller, and it would make it thinner. But I kind of like it without the rewind as well. So here is us rewinding. So now it gets bigger and smaller, or smaller and bigger, depending on where we hit. We can actually make it so every time we press down, it starts at the same, like either thin or thick, depending on what we want. And here, it's just kind of random because it's animating in behind, and we have no idea when we're pressing down on it. But anyway, didn't bother there. And then we take that pen and we add it to a motion controller. And that is what's making the pen move to wherever the mouse is. I had mentioned that I had borrowed this code right here from an example in the editor, the ZIM editor, and that was animating the pen, which you can do as well. So if you wanted to find that, you would come to here, go to ZIM, or hit the editor like that, You would come to the zaps, do a search for pen like that. And unfortunately, these are all code pens, but there's the feature pen. What is? Oh, that's showing that it's got this like a drag pull thing. So that's not the one I want. What was the first one? Pen example for the cheat sheet. Yeah, that might have been it. Ah, there it is. Look, it's an animated pen. So this one's called Kite Tail like that, but that one has an animation. And if you want, you can hit code like that. And you can see that we had the pen and we animated its Y position from where it was located. That's the code that I got left in there. Where it was located, we animated it to a Y of 600. We could animate it to an X and a Y. If I want to edit this, I have to move it over like that. And yes, I'm going to overwrite here. Now I can add things over here. So if we go X, comma, 600, comma. So now I'm animating it from this location to that location. And when I test it, oh, it broke. So why? Colon. So you see this little red X, it told me there was an error there, and I put X comma 600 rather than X colon 600. That's called syntax. It's just how we do things. It's which little characters we're allowed to use. And now if I test, and there it goes, you see? So it's animated instead of straight down like it did before, it animated over there as well. And that's the time in 2 seconds. So we could have made it happen in 1 second, and then it's faster. It didn't have enough time to get bigger and smaller. Or we could make it 4 seconds, and then it's longer. And then it gets more little bloopity bloopity bloopities. Okay, isn't that cool? All right, so let's leave that though. And come on back in here. Instead of animating it, we've added it to a motion controller. We did animate aspects of the pen itself, but we didn't animate its location. We use the motion controller for that. Here's the button that is that says clear, and when it's going to wait and do a confirm. And so that's a bit tricky. So if it's waiting, then we clear it, but we don't clear the pen unless it's on the confirm. Otherwise, this would be quite simple. But usually when you delete something, you want to let it confirm that it's going to be deleted. And we've got that sort of built in here, but we have to change some colors and stuff like that in our button. And when we press down on the button, we can't just go right away and do the clear. If we wanted to, we could. Anyway, we don't. You get the idea. We had to put in a few extra things here to handle that clear, but otherwise it's pretty straightforward there. Okay, and then when we stage mouse down, that's when we animate out the instructions. So this was, that's when we animate in the button, right? So the button must be, you can't see it, but then when we mouse on the stage, then we animate it so that we can see it. And we wait for a little bit. So this is all UX that we're talking now. We're going to show the button, but if we animate the button at the same time as we draw, so if we didn't wait, if I take out the wait there, and we come back to our pen, watch what happens. So I'm now going to draw, and as soon as I start drawing, all of a sudden this button animates in. Let's try that again. It's like, no, wait a minute. I want them to just relax a little. I don't want this to, as a matter of fact, I could probably have done it on the mouse up rather, but I do a little wait and show the button later so that it doesn't distract. So if we undo this, there we are waiting. Now we get to draw and we concentrate on our drawing like that. And then at some point the button kind of comes in for us to clear. That's the idea. And there's the confirm. And maybe they don't quite understand what that is yet. And at that time, the confirm or the wait will only last a default, I can't remember, 4 seconds or something. So confirm, I have to now press it, and there it goes. And again, I made the button disappear. I didn't have to. We could have left the button there, but it's kind of nice to have, an empty page to draw on there. All right, let's go to the next one. And what is the next one? Whoop. Hopefully this is fun for you. Watch how this animates in. We don't have to do this, but the Jam 3 guys, they were one of our first years that I taught anyway, back in the 2002, 2003, something like that. And at the time, animation like that was new on the web. You didn't see that. And they loved the animation, fell in love with it. And that really made all their websites animated in everything, basically, as long as it wasn't a user experience problem where people had to wait too long, but they knew how to do it right. And here is an example of animating stuff in, right? You don't see that every day, but it's easy with ZIM. And this uses the shuffler right here, and it's a great free learning. As a matter of fact, I'm doing research coming up on shufflings where we're going to see maybe if, oh, is this top secret? Probably not, to see if Sheridan might want to launch some e-learning apps as an alternative revenue. And it's a wonderful way to learn code. It's the reason why I sort of did the research is when I realized how good a bridge the shuffler is here to learn code. In fact, probably learn any language, but especially code, compared to, say, Scratch, where it's block-based, but not real code exactly. This is the next level up. So once you're done Scratch, come to ZIM, and perhaps you can learn code with shufflings like this, because ZIM's very simple. All right, we're also going to find out if the shuffling's in the right order and present an emitter. And then we also have to find out if all of the shufflings are in the right order, then we provide a refresh. So new circle, it is 30. Gosh, I had to change all of those, didn't I? And then we dot center. Oh, I didn't have to change much there. And here, dot drag with stage there. So all three are in, and we get a reset button. Okay, so our code is going to have to handle that, as well as the little example here that shows us. And what we've done here is we've got a special drag. It's not just drag on stage, but it's also a drag that has something called slide. So slide is true. That's sort of as we slide it there, and slide automatically comes with letting it go past the border and come back in. All right, let's take a look at the code then for that and the code for code. Yay. And by the way, this is a long one because there's 10 of these things to look through. So if you ever want to just pause and get a cookie and come back, that's fine. But please come back. This is exciting things. It is magic. And if you're interested in the program, you will hopefully get even more interested as you see the types of things that we can make and how they're not that bad to make. Okay, so, but you're welcome to take a break. Here we brought in pizzazz. I don't know why we needed pizzazz. Did we really need pizzazz? I don't actually see anywhere, so we may have just left pizzazz in. Pizzazz gives us the ability to have icons and stuff, and I don't see any icons here, so I think it was probably from something else. I'll take that away and test it out and see. Pizzazz lets us make icons, have backgrounds, and a few other things like that. And I'm going to right-click, open in default browser, and it all seems to work fine, I think. Yeah, so I think we're good. All right, what have we got going on in our shufflers then? We've got some labels. So these words right here, the instructions, are the labels. We're styling those. They are all going to be silver, italic, and true. For those who've had some idea about what style is, that's like CSS is style for HTML, but the canvas, which is what we're on here, we're on the canvas, doesn't have CSS. We can only set CSS for the overall canvas, things like its scale or its opacity, and that's pretty well at position. But we cannot scale specific things inside the canvas. So in ZIM, we made that happen with our own version of style. And there's the code. So these are the answers. Oh, spoiler alert. You could come look at the code and see the answers. By the way, if you did want to look at the code, that's called Control-U here. So if I go Control-U, this is the code for that HTML. Or if you want, you can right-click, not on the canvas, because the canvas is like a big picture. So if you right-click, it just says Save as Image. So right-click off the canvas, and then View Page Source also will allow you to see that code if you want. Okay. Anyway. This is the code right here that we're putting in the shuffler. So here we have a shuffler. We're grabbing the first line. This is the shuffler. We're grabbing the second line. And this one grabs a third. By the way, when we have arrays, this is an array, the square brackets of 3 things. The index starts at 0, 0, 1, 2. Okay. I see that we probably could have put these together a bit more efficiently, like in a loop, because look, it's pretty well all the same thing. This whole line right here is the same, our format object on each. But probably what I did is I made one and just went Control-C, Control-V and copied it. But when you have these numbers, 1, 2, 3, you can usually handle that in a loop for an efficiency. So maybe at some point I'll tidy that up. We've got our data in a loop. We should be able to tidy this up to just do it all with less code. And then we're tiling it. So we're tiling nothing. So this is nothing. Our first what is that? Instruction. So nothing here, instructions, then a little round circle, then the first shuffler, then nothing, then instructions. Okay, so that's what we got here. Nothing, instructions, then our little first circle, then our shuffler, then nothing, our second instruction. So this is a list of things that we're going to tile. There's 2 columns, 6 rows, and this is the spacing, 50, and then a series of spacing, 30 and 50. So that means it's 30 pixels between here and here, and between here and here, and between here and here, and then 50 pixels between each set. Okay, there isn't another framework that does that kind of stuff with the series. These are called ZIM V values, and it's very powerful. And it's throughout. We can use the ZIM V values in style. We can use them all over the place. It's one of the things that makes the UI UX of ZIM very powerful. DX, it's called Developer Experience. All right, we have an emitter that is created, and our default emitter is some circles. So if we don't really have to do all this stuff right here, I don't bother with the force either, but I will start at pause. This is what the default emitter would have looked like. So I refresh. We have to get one of these right. So dot center, tab. There we go. See, a bunch of little circles. What did you think of that? Did you like it? You ready? Little circles. Not bad. Now that I look at it, it seems fine. But I made the reward be a little bit of stars. I was worried about our circles are sort of the same colors as some of this stuff. So as the circles go over top of these other ones, we kind of lose the circles. And so instead made some stars. So if we undo this, here's a poly right there. These are random sizes of the radiuses of them. So it's going to be different sizes. And again, the ZIM V value, normally we would just put one number in there, 20, but then they would all be 20 in size. If we pass in an array, it picks from the array. If we did a series, then it would do them in order, which we don't really care about. This is how many points it has. So we could have done that with points as well. We could have said 5 or 6 points like that. And this is set up in ZIM. Other things will not handle it in the same way. But it makes it easy. It's different. Like you might think, oh, we could just put a random number there that would look in ZIM like rand 2 to 6. We would that would also work. But the problem is it would pick a random number, like say 5, and then all the stars would have 5. Do you see the problem? If it picked 3, then all the stars would have 3. So it is a random number, but it's not really what we want. So that's why we set up a system that are sort of delayed parameters. We call them dynamic parameters. And it was created in the 5th version of ZIM, ZIM V. So we call them ZIM V values. Okay, anyhow, we'll just make them all 5 points. And here is how pointy they are. And again, we're doing it with the colors. There, we'll pick one of those colors. And so now we get stars. Did I say that? I did, I think. And let's see what the stars look like. Oh boy, it broke. Did it say why it broke? F12. Oh, I just didn't get it right. Dot center. There. Didn't break. Thought I had it, but I didn't. Yeah, all the stars came out. Wonderful. Note that what I did there when I thought it might have broken is I hit F12 on the keyboard, and this shows the console. So this is a way. It may be that the F12 goes to elements, but you have to then click the console tab, and then from then on, when you F12, it'll remember which one you last had, which is usually our console. And that's where we show extra information as we're coding, just in case we did break something. All right, so that's the particle emitter. And when S1 is complete, we're turning the little circle C1 to green. We're setting the circle's color to green, and we're putting the emitter at C1. So we're locating the emitter at C1, and then we're spurting the emitter 10 times, as opposed to 100 times, which would look like this. Bum, 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 bum. Remember, this is a ZIM Explorer, so we're doing a bit of exploring. All right. So that was new circle, round brackets. So that will let us choose 30 in red. Yeah, we really got it right. 100 of those emitters came out. And you see how this little circle's green? So when we get them reset, we're going to have to do some, oh, I better change that, huh? We'll leave that around. Here's our reset button. We're scaling it, locating it, and setting its alpha to 0 to start. And we're only going to bring the reset button here when all our collection of shufflers, so you can have a collection of shufflers, and then when, so there we are, there's our collection, and when that collection is complete, then we run this thing called an arrow function there. I don't know if you notice the arrow functions here as well. It's just a little short functions called an arrow function because there's a little arrow in there. We can receive some information, and then this is what it does when that function runs. But anyway, down here, when it's complete, we're going to animate the alpha to 1, but we wait a little bit. We let them celebrate the completion before we animate in the button. If we didn't have to wait, then this is called the ZIM duo technique. It's 2 ways to do parameters. Sometimes we just put the parameters in order. You see that? So there's parameters in order. But here are parameters inside these squiggly brackets. And that's called the ZIM duo technique, invented in ZIM 2, ZIM duo. And the very first parameter is the props. So if we wanted to just animate the alpha, then it would look like that. That's animating the alpha property. But it wouldn't wait. So we wanted to add the wait, and we can't just say 2 here because that's how long to animate it in. Those are parameters in order. We'd have to go to some other parameter, like probably the 10th parameter, to find out, to tell it to wait. And so to do that, we would have to go null, comma, null, or undefined, 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 and eventually wait some amount. But not even yet. We'd have to even add more. So you can see that be a bit unruly. We'd have to know the right number. We'd have to count them and put them all in there. So what we did is we developed a system where we could add these squiggly brackets and say, here's the name of the parameter, props, colon, that value. And then here is another one, wait, colon 2, and another squiggly. Looks a bit awkward here because we already had some squigglies as a value, but so be it. And sometimes we drop them down like this. So you'll be learning that if you come and take a look at, you'll be experts on these things called object literals that hold properties with values. This value happens to be another object literal that lets us put other things in here. Maybe we wanted to do X is 10 or color is red, color colon red. Okay, so that would allow us to animate a whole bunch of properties all within these squiggly brackets. Very efficient. Okay, so I think we skipped some things, but that's okay. We don't have to look at everything. What did this button do when we tapped it? Oh, we're going to shuffle. We tell the collections, please shuffle. And then here is how we're going to shuffle them. Let's see, it says here, shuffle for 1.5 seconds. Then we have a series. So shuffle the first one right away, shuffle the second one after waiting 1 second, and shuffle the third one after 2 seconds. Cool, huh? Did you see them all shuffle? I think you did. I'm not sure. Okay, let's show you that again. Now that you've seen the code in behind it, there we got that one. And we have a dot, but we have the tab first. That represents a tab, dot, drag on the stage. Okay, watch how it shuffles. So we don't want to shuffle them all at once. That would just look like a ball of confusion. So instead, we shuffle the first one, then the second one, then the third one. Nice, huh? Again, user experience. It's just a little bit tidier, kind of cool that we can do that. It only takes us a little bit of extra to pop in there. And we're clearing our little circles, setting all the circles to be clear. So there they are, clear now. Oh, he just made an explainer using all these little parts that are available for us in ZIM, JavaScript Canvas framework. All right, let's go to the next one. Boop. Oh, we have one of these cool charts. Yeah, so we're about to launch ZIM 020 with the chart module. Now it'll be a module all in itself, like we have a 3JS module that does 3D stuff. We have a game module for extra game things like leaderboards and isometric boards and other things like that. We have sockets, socket module for multi-user real-time communication. And we've got the Pizzazz module for extra icons and stuff, vector icons. We have, I'll probably show you where all those things are. It's easier than talking about them. So if we go back to ZIM under code, so this is stuff to do with our code. There's our template, how we begin our template right there. A new circle in there. But if we hit libraries at the bottom, that's what we've been talking about. Multi-user, game, physics, right? Of course, physics module, 3D module, Pizzazz, and CAM. And oh, there's base. Hey, that's good. We'll have one more. So this is for database stuff. We'll have one more helper module that sits right here. It will be for charts. Did I show you CAM? Yeah, there's CAM, right? Okay. Cool. So that's upcoming, and this is one of the things in there. So I'm not sure when I'm going to launch this bubbling video. Probably launch it. Yeah, I'll launch this bubbling video before the next version of ZIM. That means people are going to get a bit of a preview. However, not much of one. So here's the chart code, and there is the growth chart, and here is the growth widget, and here is a legend. So we're using... I don't know if I used the legend. No, I didn't use the legend in here, but I tested it out, so I probably don't even need the legend. So these things right here are collapsed. So I can open and close that like that. And here's all the stuff that will go into our growth chart. But you don't need to worry about that. That is all abstracted, taken away, and put in ZIM. So all of this stuff right here would not be in here. It would be in a ZIM module. And we would put in here, we would say underscore chart, and it would bring in the chart stuff. However, we don't have that made yet. So here's our data for the chart. By the way, this data was put together by a search, an AI search, to create this data. And it sort of depends on how you word the data. We had thought that some things were either too big or too small. So we sort of, are you sure? And we sort of dug into this as much as possible to get good numbers for you. Anyway, there's the data. And it is interesting numbers, considering you're considering coming to interactive media. It's a breakdown of money, I think revenue or whatever, those millions of dollars normally come. I suppose I should know. So if we take a look, e-learning, it sort of surprised me as well over it's 14 million. This is Canadian in Canada in Canadian dollars as well. So 14 billion. That's 14 billion, 4 billion, 4 billion, 4 billion. And so forth. So these are some of the things that we can make. Gaming is still big, but what's happened if you take a look through time here, I'll hit the restart here. PC gaming, really big. Casual gaming getting bigger. Mobile gaming getting bigger. Meanwhile, PC gaming getting smaller, but casual game and mobile game still big in there. So if you take those three, it probably rival e-learning, but probably maybe about the same. And then e-learning also has gaming in it. So, I mean, I suppose you could take all the games out of e-learning and probably pull half of the games out of e-learning and put them into gaming. And the new one, generative AI, just came in here. We don't really make generative AI, but maybe it could be applied in some way. We can use AI in the apps that we make, so maybe there's a way to do that. And that's all new. But there's also data visualization. The extended reality is a combination of augmented reality and virtual reality. One day of diminished reality, maybe. But anyway, that's XR, they call that. And so we had the data combined there. We will do some of that because ZIM in 3JS, so 3JS will work in the 3D environments of, say, Meta's Quest headsets and stuff. And I was big into VR during the COVID time, and so fell in love and quite involved in that whole scene. I don't do it too much anymore, but the 3D that we're making in 3JS, I've seen in VR. I've done it in VR. So many of those examples that I've been building there, I've looked at them in VR. For instance, the whole 36 examples in the ZIM Studio, that's all in VR as well as in 3D. So we'll be taking a look at that. And of course, UI UX was quite hot in industry, might still be. And so we have strong leanings towards that. And we can make mobile games just as easily as casual games and e-learning, etc. So yay. All right, that was the chart. We also have a year that's kind of going and a restart button. So let's have a look at the code behind some of this. It may not quite be all tidied, but it's pretty well there, I think. So we've got our titles, we have our colors. We're looping through those to create an info parameter that will be passed into our growth chart. So width, height, title, num, info, and data. So info handles the well, I guess I'm getting mixed up with other charts too. Info for the other charts handles the axis, the X and Y axis, and what numbers are there, whereas the data is for the plots or the graph parts of it. Here, the info is handling, I think, these icons and stuff, the names of things maybe, and then the data is happening over time. So we're creating both the info there, and here's look up on the actual titles, I guess. Not sure. And there we are creating the data, because the data that we got from AI right here isn't necessarily the data so it's repeated this constantly, whereas the format of the data going into the growth chart is more like just arrays of the data and not the same words over and over again. Anyway, so that's us using a ZIM loop to easily loop through some stuff a couple times and create the data for us. We have the title of it. Here is the growth chart itself. It has a footer. There's the title. There's the data and the info being placed in there. We've also got a variety of settings for that. The allow labels false, we set up. So now allow labels always is, you see how the labels are inside there? Sometimes they don't have enough room. So we then move the labels to outside. But if we have it false, there's only labels that fit the labels. And then we would have to, they're just popped in there. But we would have to provide a legend. So maybe that's where we had a legend initially, or you just sort of guess at those. We realized that guessing isn't the best, so we made it the default. So if we don't have this, we could either set it to true, but if we don't have it, then it will be the default. And the default is, yes, please keep the labels always. Excuse me. Oh, I must not have saved. Control S. Been having a problem with my Control S on my keyboard, which is really annoying. So I Control S to save it, and then it doesn't save. So there's the labels there always. It's kind of neat. Like as you come into the program, if you're coming into the program, hopefully you are, because I was the one that made ZIM, I've been thinking about how all of these, that developer experience, how all of these classes, they're called, are made. Component classes are made. And so that'll rub off on you as well. As you're in class, we talk in the second term about how to make your own custom libraries and what kinds of thoughts need to go into, say, making components. So that's all fascinating. I've been doing that for a long time. Since the 80s, I went to school in engineering and specialized in ergonomics and interface. Can you believe it? Still 40 years later, still doing interfaces. Oh, my word. But remember, I'm a creator, so I like creating things. And this was my last 10 years working on ZIM is to help other people create things. And that is a noble cause. And that is actually the cause of interactive media. We aren't necessarily supposed to be making art ourselves. I mean, we can, but we're supposed to be making environments in which other people can make art. So we make the environments, the tools, and we make the games and let other people play. That kind of thing. So it's a noble cause, interactive media. And here was us making a growth chart. We also have a widget that is there. And the widget shows the year, and all you have to do is pass it the widget. This is again that DX. Initially we had it, okay, well, we'll have an event. This will have an event that anytime it changes, we'll have to change the number here. And then we said, okay, why don't we make that happen automatically? So all you need to do is pass the growth chart in to the growth widget, and the growth chart will say, oh, I'm supposed to change that, and it does. So it becomes fairly straightforward on the outside. Which is what the developer's coding. That's you as you're coming in to build this, the creator. By the way, in general, you've got a developer who does the code, and you've got a designer who does the planning of what needs to be built, possibly the visuals, if they're a graphic artist. But then you've got a creator, and a creator is what I'm calling somebody who just makes it all. And I'm a creator, and that's what we tend to graduate as creators from interactive media. We bring in designers, teach them how to code so they can do it all. We bring in coders, and we teach them how to design so they can do it all. And that's great. Even if you don't want to or can't do it all, at least you know what the other side is doing, and it makes you a better employee, or just to have a chance to not even be an employee, to be your own, to create by yourself for your own reasons. We hope that we inspire that as much as possible, whether that's starting your own company or certainly at least having a great hobby. Luckily, I treat this as well as a hobby. I'm doing it all the time. I teach it. I worked in industry as it, but I do it because I love it. That's probably the best thing that can happen. All right, that was that one. Chart. I think we're halfway through. Let's go to the next one. I don't have a little number. Didn't think of that. I don't have a little number saying which one we're on. That would be an indicator probably. So we'd run little dots, 10 little dots across the top in between. Probably should do that. Yeah, that's a good idea. So the indicator then, depending on which one I am, would show us which one we're on here. Sometimes you can turn those little dots into interactive as well, but because they're small, you don't always expect that. We should not rely on people pressing on little dots. We've also given them the arrow. Here's the odd robots. We're not really going to go much through the robots that's in the game, because that's a pretty big casual game that was made there. But we didn't even bring in the game module. Huh? We didn't need it. That's fine. But we did want pizzazz for something, and I believe it because in the odd robots we had these guys right here. So that's a pizzazz but icon right here. So these are little icons. And that, maybe even the check mark and the X, even though, yeah, they were icons as well. Okay, I refresh so we don't have the sound going. So in this case, what we did is we created a frame with just the banner, and probably could have put, I didn't, but probably could have put the nav in there as well. And then the rest of this, which is quite a lot, is a game. It's a fairly complex game. Okay, so I think we'll just leave that. And we're The game actually came from the ZIM site here. Let's show you where that is. So here's the ZIM site. And if we go to the home page, here's the home page, and scroll on down about halfway through is the store right there. So that was back in ZIM 014. We never went back to look at 014, but in ZIM 014, we launched the Zaps tool to make progressive web apps. And to show people how to make that, we made plasma points, which you can collect across the site. And to unlock levels in things like Dazzle Finger and Odd Robots. In Odd Robots, you can only find the evil ones. And if you want to find the good ones, like finish the game, you got to get enough plasma points. In Dazzle Finger has this wonderful thing that we can do in ZIM, and that's dragging along paths. And those can be user editable paths as well. So we've got a bunch of different paths, but these paths require you to have plasma points, the last bunch of them there. Okay, so anyway, that is where Odd Robots came from. And if you want to look back through any Explore videos or bubbling videos, maybe there is even an Explore video about how we made Odd Robots if you really wanted to find it. Okay, let's go to the next one then, which is pack. So there we're taking pictures and we're packing them in to a certain dimension. All right. Built into that, by the way, is the ability to move the pack. Or to move the pictures if you so desire. You don't always have to. Isn't this neat? This is Lauren here, who has a video. So there's a camera that is videoing her and putting it in here. And then it's delayed. So as you press the button, you can turn your body around, turn around, and then look at the display again. And the display is delayed by whatever setting you want, so that you can see the back of you. It's like a mirror where you can see the back of you. Isn't that clever? I love that idea. So well done. Okay, anyway, coming back here, let's have a look at pack. And once again, if this is all too long for you and you're dying for a break, just put it on pause. Go get a drink or a cookie. Come on back, though. Make sure you finish it off. All right. So we're in ZIM 019 again. We have 27 pictures, it looks like, with numbers like P, I think it starts at 0, P0, P1, P2, P3. So that is us preparing those picture names, and we want to show 5 at a time. So we're looping 5 times. This is before we even load anything in ZIM. We're looping 5 times and we're plucking whatever number we want. This just makes an array of numbers, and we're plucking from those and adding it to the JPEG. Whatever. Okay, so anyway, that's a little code can be very efficient. You don't have to do that. We could have hard-coded it. We could have hard-coded all of the names of as a matter of fact, we have a tool that easily goes and creates a list of images. It's called the ZIM asset tool, and you can just point it to a directory and select any of the pictures you want, and then it'll just put them all in here as code, just like in here in an array. But since they have numbers, we were just doing some looping, and then we want to pull 5 randomly out of that, and that's how we did it. And there we are putting whatever those 5 are, and we load it in there along with the banner. Okay, into our frame. And here we are looping through whatever strings those were. Those strings means a text, but we want to turn those texts into pictures. So we're looping through the strings each time we get a string. So pics is an array of images that like P0.jpg, P12.jpg, P15.jpg, and P8.jpg. All right, so that's the array. We're looping through that array. Each time we're given a picture and we're given an index number, like 0 would be the first, 1 would be the next, etc. So we're then turning pics at I. So if we're on our first picture, we're turning pics at I, instead of it being a string, is now equal to a new pic of whatever that string is. And that's a ZIM picture, like a visual thing. that we're storing on top of or overwriting the normal string that was there. Isn't that neat? So basically that line turns strings of pictures into actual picture objects that we can see. These guys right here. So now we have a list of 5 actual pictures. We're creating a new pack of a certain size, just a little bit less than the width, a little bit less than the height, minus the banner height, and we're passing the pics that we want to show. We also styled the drag order true. If we wanted to, we could have put the drag order of true inside here. But do you see what the problem is? Here we have the width, we have the height, we have the pics. We would then have to go find out wherever the drag order is. You know how to find that? You probably don't. So let's go here. That's in the ZIM docs right here. Docs. We type in pack, P-A-C. Probably find it. There it is. Here is the order. Pack, width, item, spacing, spacing V, flatten, direction, lock, background color, align, V align, last align, blah, blah, blah. What were we looking for again? Order? I can't remember. What was the parameter? It was called drag order. Yeah, so where's drag order? Drag, color, drag order, right there. So we would have had to do a whole bunch of nulls to get there, or we could have changed. So if we wanted to, we could have come in here and said, this is the width, this is the height. Spacing doesn't really matter there. This is the pics. I think it was called pic. No, it's called items. So we'd have to look specifically here, width, height, items, and then drag order. And so then we could go width, height, items, colon, and drag order, capital O, that's called camel casing. Isn't that cute? Drag order, and that would be true. And then squiggly to end the squiggly. So there we are. We went to the ZIM Duo technique, and we wouldn't have had to do the style. All right, but instead of doing that, we just looked at it and went, okay, we'll cheat a little bit. We'll leave these guys because they were nice and simple, the 3 things there that we want to pass in, and we'll style a drag order, which will apply drag order of true to whatever gets made after this style. Cool, huh? Do you see the difference there? Or like, do you see how that all came to be? Let's see, Control Shift Z. I can't get that. Oh, okay, can't. Oh, pack order. What's that? No, that's going wrong way. I can't. I was going to say that this kind of looked like what we had in here, didn't it? So because we had the ZIM Duo technique, the 2 ways to be able to do the parameters, style for us was easy. All we had to do was say, oh, okay, we'll take that format that we just typed in there and we'll put it outside, and anything that gets made afterwards, we'll get those. So it only took us, I think it was a day. I usually say 6 hours. It took us 6 hours to make CSS in ZIM because we already had the ZIM Duo technique. Isn't that amazing? And we then subsequently improved style over a series of, or over our different versions. But anyway, isn't that exciting? So cool. So there's our pack, and we're here, we're animating in the pack. Watch what happens. This is our pack without the animation. Let's see which one you like better. And we come here and refresh. Let's make it big. It's ready, refresh. All right, there it is. And now let's do our animation. Save that, and we make this big, and we refresh. Okay. Oh, nice. That's the Jam 3 folks again. There's Adrian, by the way. He's winning a Cons Award there. Okay, nice, huh? There's John Iacoviello. He's winning one of the first Flash Awards, FITC, or Flash in the Can at the time. He was a graduate of ours. It was amazing. He won the Developer Award. That was him. So it wasn't interactive media. He was just really good coming into the program, and he loved working in 3D at the time when a lot of people didn't work in 3D yet. So that was his thing at the time. John Iacoviello. It's kind of neat too. I live in Hamilton. So does he. That's nice. Although I think he went to San Francisco, I believe. Cool. There's John Vincent right there. He's in Canada too, gesture tech, taking a card from Tina. And that he's a wonderful fellow. He did all the sort of interactive works that would be on floors or on walls that you would wave at. He was early virtual reality, very famous at it as well. Okay, so what are we looking at here though? That was the pack. Oh, animating. We were talking about animating. Right. The pack, normally you can animate a container using this thing called a sequence, and then it will just animate everything in the container. But the pack also has other things like the ability to handle the interface for these things. Like as I pick up, you see that little dashed lines and stuff like that. So the pictures of the pack are all stored in the content of the pack. So that's a container, and we're animating that content container of the pack, animating from true and alpha of 0. So its alpha currently is 1. Alpha is how transparent it is, goes from 0 to 1. So by default, it is 1. But here we're animating from an alpha of 0. Each one's going to take a second to animate, and there's the sequence time right there. So if you wanted it to be faster, that would be 0.1. If we put it at 1 second, that's pretty slow. And then the ease, we actually don't want, what are we animating? The alpha? We don't need a back out, so that should just be like that. A back out works for an animation of scale. But I tried scale, I think, and decided I didn't like the scale, and so instead went with the alpha. So if I refresh here, now we have 1 second in between, which is too long. You don't want to do that. That's bad user experience. You don't want people waiting that long. Animation almost should be felt, not really waited for. So we have it coming in at a point, either a 0.1 or a 0.2 probably would have been fine. I looked at this and sort of said, oh, that must have missed my save or something. What did I do? Oh, the time. I got the wrong thing. Sequence 0.1. There we go. Refresh here. That kind of was like a wash where it almost looks like it's animating in a wash going down, which is what it's doing. But I bumped it up to 0.2 just to kind of get a better sense as to a sideways animation as well. And I feel a bit that it goes sideways through. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. That's the world of a designer. They might spend an hour or two on that and then go get a coffee. Then spend another hour or two. I don't know, how long should we make that? Anyway, I'm teasing you. I better not tease too much because we do have a lot of designers coming in to find out how to code, and I don't want to seem like I'm picking on them. All right, what's next after the pack? But did you like that? Pack was, that was an exciting time coding the pack. It's tricky to code that stuff, that's for sure. I remember it. So it doesn't take you long to put that in there, but me, if you had to code pack on its own, I think it was probably about a week, maybe not quite a week of hard coding, really, to get all of the possibilities into a packing like that. And even then, I don't know if I got all the possibilities, but we did get a number of different things in there, including dragging them around, which is very handy. This one was for UI UX. It's pretty straightforward. It's 2 dials, and in the examples we talk about the fact that yes, this is a dial component that models life or mimics life. Look at how my cursor is sort of dragging that around in a circle. But from a UI or from a UX standpoint, from a user experience standpoint, especially if these are small, that's not always the easiest thing to do. So people who make sound panels, like panels of dials and stuff like that for sound applications, just do this up and down. So you put your finger on it and go up and down. It's a bit of a problem from a design standpoint in terms of consistency. If people are used to the ZIM dial doing this, when you try and do that with here, it's going the wrong way, back and forth. It's going, what's going on? So the first few times coming from this format into this one, you might not know what's going on, but as soon as you do, it's quite easy to operate it like a slider going up and down. We do have a slider as well, but this has the form factor. So rather than a big long line that kind of might go too far up, you've got a little dial. Well, it's quite a big dial, but you could have little small ones here, have 10 of them in here. If you had sliders, they'd be sort of taking up a bit more room, perhaps, or the different type of room. So these are the things we think about. Let's go take a look at the code behind that then. How are we doing on this Explorer? You good? By the way, whenever I say an Explorer, I'm supposed to pop on over here and bring up the sound for the Explorer. ZIM Explorer. Yeah. We are at, what are we at? Just over an hour. So often these Explorers go between an hour and 2 hours. So we're good. We're nearly there. UI UX. We got a book in the last one. Okay, so a couple more. Here is dial 1, and here is dial 2. Here are little labels that we're going to put numbers on the dial. You don't actually have little labels. We could say use labels here. True. And then you would have the following. Lovely. Is that what you expected? Do you see what's happened? We've styled the label. I forgot at the side here. These labels are styled. And so the labels inside of the use labels, this style right here is styling the label. And we didn't turn it off. And then we've arrived at a dial down here. And so those dials, when we use the labels, are taking those styles. So we would have to, where'd I go there? We would have to come down here and say style is equal to, this turns it off. There's one way we can turn off the style, just set it to empty, or we can say style like this dot clear, and that will also make it empty, but this one's shorter. We also have techniques where we could put like once :true in here, but we're actually using it twice, so that wouldn't work. But anytime you want to just style something once, we can also, which I don't think would work here, we could say, let me check. Depends on whether the label inside of the dial inherits. So what we've just done here is we've said labels get the following style. If the labels inside of the dial don't inherit, and therefore take on what all labels have, then if they don't inherit, this would work. If they do inherit, then it won't work. Let's have a look. And we refresh here. They inherit. So that means these are still inheriting stuff from the label. I think there's a style that actually says don't. Oh yeah, maybe, can I do this? Inherit false? I don't remember. Inherit :false. Let's have a look. That still is broken. So anyway, there might be a way around that. I just don't remember at the time. So the easiest way is to say style is equal to turn that style off, and then we will be good. All right, unfortunately, those labels are black. So label, I don't know if there's a label color on here, but there's the use labels. We'd have to look at the docs. So let's go here and go dial. That's dialogue, radial, dial. There we are. And by the use labels, most likely there might be a label color. I'm not sure. No, I don't see. So we might need to then could style and say color : white, like that. Or if we wanted to, we could go to label color white. I don't know if that styling will break other things. So there we just styled the labels colors to be white, like that. So we don't need to put a number out here. We can do it this way. I actually can't remember if the numbers work on this one. I don't think they do. So therefore, to be consistent, we put the number outside here. There, that's a ZIM Explorer, some funness. I'm not going to bother, so we don't need to bother there, here. Or I could have just done the undo, and then I don't want to use labels. Anyway, white. There. Good. So anyway, we've got two labels. This one we're styling as sound, and it works on sliders too to get that really cool look for a label. And that really cool look being this bar that's called an accent. So you can do it with parameters as well. If you noticed in there, there's accent ones as well. Accent color, accent offset. So accent size, color offset, background color, accent difference. So there's a few things to relate to accents. And we could have done them individually. But if you turn sound on, that will automatically style all that for you. So that's nice. And here we are running the dial. You haven't seen this yet. We're using a change method that when the dial changes, we call this arrow function. And there we are setting the label's text to the dial's value. So that works for label 1 and dial 1, and then label 2 and dial 2. So it's pretty easy to use a dial to find out its value right there. And in this case, we're adjusting the decimals of it. And if we didn't adjust the decimals, it would be kind of a mess. So, well, I'm not going to bother showing you a mess. But because the sound dial has to many decimal places, our labels would be to many decimal places unless we say only make it to 1 decimal. Okay, or we could have done 2 decimals. I'll show you the 2 decimals. If I can find it at all. Where'd it go? Here we go. Refresh. And okay, there's 2 decimal places. If we didn't do something there, it would be really long and kind of stretch over everything. We don't want that. Decimal 2. There we go. All right, that's the next one. Next one. So this is new in ZIM as well, to do a cloud or a word cloud like that. But the book has been around for a while. Isn't that book lovely? And it can be interactive. So these things can all be interactive as well. You can interact and then pull up from the corner specifically if you want that. And these were word clouds. By the way, these word clouds aren't totally final yet. I've sent it off to our other teachers just to confirm. I don't quite know what they're using for project management, for instance, if it's all these things or not. So there might be some changes there. I do know what's going on in these guys, though. But here we go. All right, and let's have a look at the code then. Here's the book. There's the word cloud right here. Again, this stuff will go into ZIM, into the chart. So I might have to change it to a data instead of chart. It could be a data module, but I already have, I have a data module already. Chart's probably okay. A chart is anything visual that shows information. So a word cloud is showing information by size and stuff like that. It could be it's a chart as well, I think. A graph is when it has axes. So I think it's probably good enough in there. And here's the data that goes into that. Got initially started grabbing the frequencies from the actual lessons page for me, but I didn't have the lessons page for the other teachers. So that's when I asked AI to create a word cloud data for that. So don't totally believe the word cloud data for these other ones, but they're kind of made to look nice, I suppose. All right. And then we realized it would be nice to be able to create that data. So in the word cloud class itself, we created a function called prepare word data, which we then exposed down here as a method. So prepare word data is available from the outside as well. So you can use that to prepare your word data, or you could just pass in the raw text. And if you pass in the raw text, then it will prepare the data internally. However, that might take a little while depending on how, well, I mean, not long, depending on how big your text is. So what we did, I think for this one, is we passed in the text initially. Oh no, I think we just used AI to get us the word data. But for mine anyway, we passed in the text you prepared the word data, had it output to the console, then we took the data from the console so that we don't have to prepare it every time. You can see that in this one, we've got a lot of them going on here, and it wouldn't have been too much to prepare. It probably would have been fine, but why bother doing the extra code if you can pre-prepare? Is that necessary? No, just prepare. It's fine. Pre-prepare. Pre-prepare the data. Then that's kind of a good lesson. And these lessons are throughout all of our building as we make things together. We've been building for a long time. So why bother making something live if you can publish it? So that means just take the current data. If the data is not going to be changing daily, take the current data and publish the results of that as just an HTML page that isn't dynamic, rather than constantly pushing out to the internet dynamic data. So that's called a publishing system. Anyway, we know about those types of things, and we'll go over that in our course, especially with ZIM, who does more of the web development side. All righty. We want to see the book now. So there's the word data thing. That was us preparing the word data. If it's, sorry, I'm right in the class still. I don't need to be scrolling on down there. We had our data. Here's our frame again. There's our banner. Here are the colors for the word data. It was a bit tricky. I would have liked to make nice colors for you, but because we're on colors here, it didn't quite work out. So this looks really nice. If you did a word cloud on a dark background, you can make, say, the ZIM colors be in here, and it's very beautiful looking. But this is a bit more of a, I don't know, design issue, I suppose. Color issue. So those are the colors I used, and here we are styling, preparing to make a bunch of pages. There's the title of the pages. Here we are doing the looping to make a bunch of pages thing. So we could have done that back on that other one where we had a bunch of things, and I said, maybe we should have looped through and been more efficient there. So here we are looping through our titles. Each time we get a title, we're making a new page. Internally here, we create a label that is the title, the string of it. We're positioning that at the top of the page. We are setting a scale for our word cloud. Oh, right. Some of these, for instance, the video one had Premiere, was really big, and it wouldn't always fit, and Arduino was really big. So we dropped the scale a little bit smaller on them so that these would fit in properly. We're still making that class. There might be some things currently we have. If the word doesn't fit, it tries again. But if it really doesn't fit, then we leave a message in the console saying could not fit this word. And so we were seeing as we made that, a couple of those could not fit the word Arduino, and yet being the biggest and the most important, it's like, well, wait a minute, we don't want a word cloud where our most important thing doesn't fit. So we are going to have to rely a bit on the developers. However, if we're totally dynamic, then maybe there's some way that we can say, rather than say it doesn't fit, maybe we can just scale the whole thing smaller. So we worked on this scale system right here. So we've got it scaling to a 1.2 if the words weren't fitting. And what that means is it makes the cloud bigger and then scales it smaller to fit the dimensions that you've asked for. So we have asking in the word cloud dimensions to fit here, a bit smaller, the width of the page, but the height doesn't have to be as high because we don't want the word cloud going all the way up to the bottom. Okay, so that will fit the word cloud in that size. And there's our data for each cloud. As we loop through, we get the data for each cloud. This was how many we want maximum. And there's the scale that we're passing in there. Because if we just put in 1 each time here, if I go and refresh here, and I have 12, it couldn't fit the word breadboard, actuator, and installation. So that means they're not showing up in here. Whereas if we give it some more room to show up by making that 1.2, I'll just put scale in here. That's going to either be 1.2 or 1. That's called a ternary operator there. It's a little confusing looking, but basically it means if this thing right here, if I is 3 or 4, if that is true, then do that. Oops. Else do what's after the colon. So if this is true, do what's after the question mark, else do what's after the colon, and take that and assign it to scale. So it's a quick way to do a conditional as an if statement with just some figures there. Don't worry about that. There, now you're not taking interactive media. That was it. The straw that broke the camel's back. Ah, darn. Anyway, don't worry about that. That took me years to trust what was going on with a ternary operator like that. Eventually I did. And that's one nice thing about going to school, though. So rather than taking years, you're going to be at school. We'll be in the lessons together. We'll properly explain it. We'll practice it. And it will not scare you anymore. Whereas for years it scared me and therefore I didn't use it, which is too bad. All right, there's a reason to come to school. Yeah, now you're going to take interactive media so that you can do a ternary operator. That's it. Oh, wonderful. Anyway, there's our word cloud. We're positioning that on our page and we're pushing our page right here. We're pushing our page into pages. That's the array. This is raw JavaScript. That's another thing that we'll do throughout as well, as we'll tell you the difference between when we're using raw JavaScript and when we're using a framework, things that ZIM is using. ZIM is all built in JavaScript, so it's no problem. We're constantly using JavaScript, but we want you to know when you're using a framework versus raw JavaScript as well, and why we would use one or the other. There we are animating in the first of the two. So there's one page or one word cloud. Here's another one. So this page, the first page, second page. And we're taking the cloud within that page and we're animating from an alpha of 0 using the sequence again. So that means, well, check this out. Ready? We refresh here. Sorry, I'll do this again. Refresh here. And each of those kind of animate in. Do you want to see it a bit slower? So that's a pretty darn fast sequence because there's a lot of them. Okay, I'll do just the first one slow. There we go. This one went really quickly already. Try again. Beep, 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 beep. Isn't that neat? All right, coming on back to what we had though, which was 0.02 seconds. And the ease of back out, again, we don't need that. Why did I put those in there? Just copy. I must have been trying it with scale too, because you can animate other things too, like the scale. We could have scaled each one in from a 0 scale and had it scale. We'd have to center registrate each of those, which we probably could. But anyway, in the end, I liked it. The alpha, I just left the ease type in there, which is fine now. And this one is waiting. So the first one goes. So now here we come. First one comes in, then the second one comes in. Our little corner flips up as well. All right, we're on our last one. Yeah, okay, so here's our last one. And we'll have the little video of me in here talking over this. I think when I present these without the video, because I'm going to let people come in and try these out for real, then I'll move those over so they're centered. But I'm preparing now for the video that we're making of all these. And here we have a glitch going on in a picture. So that's just a picture. Let's go to the next one, unlock. We're bringing in the banner and the unlock JPEG. That's this picture in behind here. We are then going to take that and scale it to the stage and then add it to a holder. Ah, right. So there's a bit of an issue glitching something that was scaled was glitching the original unscaled thing. So if you're doing that, if you're glitching something that's scaled, that's like adding a shader to it, then you'll want to put it into a container. So the container is not scaled, but the picture is scaled and added to the container. And then we pass the holder, which is the container, into the glitch right there. And we're using chunk, which is default. And here's some glitch parameters that we would have to go off to. I'm going to Sheridan site here, type in glitch. I should do this for you guys. There's glitch, and I'll copy these guys right here and stick them in here, glitch. Boop. Here's how to comment. Put 2 slashes in front, and that comments in there. Maybe we'll put them on 2 lines here. So those are the parameters for the glitch. As you can see, I'm balancing what we've got with those parameters. If you glitch all the time, so this is how long to stay on, how long to stay off for. I think. Okay, well, let's have a look. This is the object, the type, the alpha is 0.5, so half of a glitch. So there's the actual picture's also in there behind. You see that? Where the holder, which holds the real picture, is in there behind. Centered. And then the glitch itself is added to it. So those are 2 separate things. And that way you can sort of set the transparency of the glitch so that it's not overpowering. If we set that to 1, I don't know, you may not notice too much, but I notice a little bit. Now it's 1, and the whole picture moves, which maybe looks cool, but it at times can be kind of a lot of glitch. So what I've done is brought it to a half transparency. And then as well with these things called time on, time off as well. So that's the alpha. Time on is 0.4. So stay on for half a second, then go off for about a second. And then the variance of that is 0.3 seconds. So it's not always on at 0.4, always off at after 1.1, always on at 0.4, always off, right? We have a little variance randomly in there. And then what are the 4s? That's the strength of them. So if we bump up the strength to a 10, and this is another part, this is the modifier, that's looks like this. So there it is, quite glitchy, but you can really see the off and on now, when it's off and when it's on. If it's on all the time, it's just a bit much. So here's on all the time. I'll put these both to null. Can't remember. Okay, so there's what the glitch looks all the time. Kind of cool, huh? Anyway, there you go. Enough playing around. Hopefully I'm undoing this. Right. I think that's good. And we made a lock icon. So we brought in pizzazz for that icon. And the label unlock the skills, and there's our button, and that button goes to our apply to Sheridan Interactive Media. All right, when we tap it, and a banner and our unlock. Good. We're all ready. Yeah! Well, wasn't that nice? So we have done all of them, starting from our parallax. Remember way back in our parallax? And I hope you've enjoyed the making of the, what are these called again? Not learners, explainers. Little explainers. Hope you've enjoyed the explainers. I am Dr. Abstract. This has been ZIM Explore. And you're welcome to come find us at the forum, zimjs.com/forum, or Discord, zimjs.com/discord. And hopefully, if you were watching this from our Sheridan site, you come and join us for Sheridan Interactive Media. It is a wonderful thing, all this stuff that we're building. Hopefully, if you watch the video about, the video that we're doing for these explainers as well. And we'll see you maybe in the new year. Cheers.